The thing that really hooked the world's attention was as ballsy as it was shocking. Word got out that Harry and Meghan had the nerve to demand a formal apology from the late Queen Elizabeth II. Their big complaint: the Queen's call to switch their security from automatic, taxpayer-funded royal protection to a pay-your-own-way setup. To Harry and Meghan, this wasn't just normal paperwork for royals who stepped back from official duties. They saw it as a straight-up attack from the institution. Insiders close to the Sussex camp leaked that the couple believed the Queen's refusal to let them go, half in, half out, was a deliberate power move to strong-arm them back into the royal family. Harry's message was loud and clear: give us full Metropolitan Police protection, or we're out for good. In a string of increasingly angry public statements and big interviews, he flat out said he'd never come back to the UK under those dangerous conditions. He declared he couldn't and wouldn't forgive his family, including the late Queen and then Prince Charles, until they reversed the security decision. He even admitted he might one day forgive the media for what he called their predatory behavior. But the betrayal by his own blood cut way deeper. He painted the whole security pull as a setup by the establishment, a coordinated conspiracy to leave him and his family completely exposed. But now that it's 2026 and the dust from all those legal fights has settled, the cold, hard facts coming out of the British court system are blowing up Harry's hunted prince story. Turns out, the narrative doesn't hold up. It looks less like a desperate fight for safety and more like an obsession with getting a very specific, elite diplomatic perk. To get what's happening now, we have to go back to the real story of that 2020 Sandringham summit. Harry has always claimed he was blindsided by the security cuts, but records and briefings from inside the meeting show otherwise. He sat right across from his grandmother, accepted the terms of Megxit, and signed the papers. He knew exactly what he was agreeing to. By choosing private life in North America, originally Canada, he was giving up automatic taxpayer-funded Met Police protection. He understood the deal perfectly. The second private security bills started hitting, though the whole agreement suddenly got rebranded as persecution. The picture of King Charles as some cold-hearted dad who cut his son off? That's also falling apart. In that first tough year after they moved into their California mansion, it wasn't British taxpayers footing the bill for private security. It was Charles himself, paying out of his own pocket. Despite Harry's dramatic claims on the BBC that he'd been financially abandoned and left with a massive security tab, his dad actually stepped up and gave them a generous bridge to get settled. Charles reportedly told him something like, "I get it. You need time." But Harry left that part out so he could lean harder into the victim narrative. So what was this 5-year legal war against the UK Home Office really about? It wasn't truly about a couple of armed guards at the airport. The real goal was scoring internationally protected person, IPP status, that ultimate golden ticket reserved for heads of state, prime ministers, and top diplomats. Once you see that, Harry's tantrums make total sense. With IPP status, every country he visits, whether Nigeria, Colombia, or some fancy resort in Mexico, would be legally required to provide him top-tier government-funded armed security. That would save the Sussexes somewhere between $6 million and $28 million a year, shifting the cost of their celebrity lifestyle onto whatever country's taxpayers happen to be hosting them. On top of the huge money save, IPP status would give them a powerful hidden shield. Diplomatic-level protection around their finances, foundations, money moves, and income streams, keeping them away from the normal scrutiny regular rich people face. Harry didn't just want safety. He wanted the untouchable status of a royal without any of the actual duty. He tried to use the British courts to force the world to treat him like he still mattered at that level. all while bad-mouthing the very institution that gave him his title. This first part of the investigation shows what the security lawsuit really was: a political weapon. Harry used the courts to try to expose the establishment, but ended up only exposing his own contradictions. He kept saying the UK was too dangerous for his family. Yet, Prince Harry would later fly straight into the heart of the war zone in Ukraine for a photo opportunity, without the heavily armed security he had long insisted was essential for his survival. The stage is now set for Part 2, where we will examine the key legal milestones in detail: Sir Peter Lane's devastating 51-page judgment that dismantled Harry's case, followed by the Court of Appeal's unanimous rejection that finally slammed the door shut on the Duke's legal ambitions and cleared the path for King Charles's calculated response. The era of correction has begun. The truth is no longer a luxury Prince Harry can manipulate or control. As the sun rose over London's High Court in early 2024, the fragile legal house of cards Prince Harry had constructed began to collapse under the weight of objective jurisprudence. For years, the Duke of Sussex had publicly portrayed his security downgrade as both a personal betrayal and a clear breach of the law. Yet the judicial decisions of 2024 and 2025 delivered a definitive verdict, sweeping away emotional rhetoric and replacing it with the cold finality of court rulings. The first major blow came on 28 February 2024 in a courtroom that has hosted some of the most important constitutional cases of the era. Mr. Justice Sir Peter Lane issued a comprehensive 51-page judgment that systematically dismantled Harry's arguments. The Duke had claimed that the Executive Committee for the Protection of Royalty and Public Figures, RAVEC, had acted unlawfully and with procedural unfairness when it stripped him of automatic taxpayer-funded security. His lawyers alleged bias within the committee, pointing particularly to the involvement of the Queen's private secretary. Sir Peter Lane's ruling was uncompromising. The court found that moving Harry to a bespoke, case-by-case security assessment was not only lawful, but entirely reasonable. The judge emphasized that Harry's status had fundamentally changed once he stopped being a working member of the royal family, granting him the same level of protection afforded to the King or the Prince of Wales, who undertake hundreds of official engagements on behalf of the British state, would have been an unjustifiable anomaly. In short, the court ruled that Harry's sense of being targeted did not translate into a legal entitlement to public funds. This was the first major memento mori for the Sussex brand. In the eyes of the law, Harry was no longer a state priority. Refusing to accept this diminished reality, Harry pressed ahead with an aggressive appeal. This led to the second and final blow on 2 May 2025. The Court of Appeal, led by the Master of the Rolls, Sir Geoffrey Voss, and two other senior judges, delivered a unanimous verdict. They did not simply disagree with Harry, they rejected the entire foundation of his case. The judges upheld that the government's approach was both flexible and fair, providing protection when genuinely required for specific events, but not as an automatic lifelong privilege tied to his birth. The ruling was final. No further avenues for appeal remained. The lengthy legal battle Harry had hoped would affirm his importance instead formally confirmed his status as a private citizen under British law. The significance of these two dates, February 2024 and May 2025, cannot be overstated. They mark the clear transition from Harry the victim to Harry the defeated. By the time the appeal was lost, much of the public had grown tired of the endless litigation. The narrative that the establishment was persecuting him gave way to the simpler truth. Harry was a man unwilling to accept the same rules that apply to everyone else. While some mainstream outlets had briefly entertained the possibility of a Harry victory, the courts ensured justice remained blind to celebrity. This judicial reckoning paved the way for what followed. Having failed to strong-arm the government through the legal system, Harry was eventually forced to return to the very institutions he had spent 5 years attacking. As we will explore. In the next part, King Charles III and the Prince of Wales had already been preparing their own strategic response to this prolonged campaign. In the immediate aftermath of his complete legal defeat in May 2025, the Duke of Sussex found himself in a strategic vacuum. The high-stakes courtroom gamble had ended in total rejection, leaving him with massive legal costs and a rapidly fading victim narrative. It was at this precise moment that a new and highly convenient sequence of events began to unfold, one that many royal watchers and security professionals regard with deep skepticism. This marked the shift from the courtroom to the arena of tactical public relations, where a lone individual armed with nothing but a camera and a notebook would suddenly take center stage. The September 2025 incident became the centerpiece of Prince Harry's desperate bid to pressure the British government. What was initially presented as a major security scare was, upon closer examination, a textbook example of manipulating public perception. While in the UK for the Wellchild Awards, the Sussex team began leaking reports of a serious security breach. They claimed a female stalker had come dangerously close to the Duke on 2 separate occasions, once at a central London hotel and again 2 days later at a West London venue. Tabloid headlines made it look as though Harry's repeated warnings about imminent danger were finally being proven right. Mainstream media initially ran with the dramatic narrative of an escalating threat against the prince. However, as details emerged, the story lost its cinematic edge. Security sources and independent inquiries quickly identified the woman. Far from being a dangerous criminal or national security risk, she was a prominent member of the Sussex Squad, the couple's most ardent online fan base. She had previously been photographed with Harry and Meghan at international events and had even traveled to Nigeria to follow them. Despite the alarming language used by the Sussex camp, the woman was never arrested, charged, or prosecuted. To the Metropolitan Police, she was simply an overzealous fan, not a felon. The true strategic purpose of the episode became clear in December 2025. After losing his ability to pursue legal action against the government, Harry dropped his claim that the security system itself was unlawful. Instead, he finally followed proper procedure, something he could have done in 2020. He submitted a formal request to the Home Secretary for a new risk assessment, citing the September incidents as fresh evidence. By aggressively publicizing the encounters and leaking details of the woman's proximity to the press, Harry's team aimed to create a no-win situation for the Home Office. They were effectively daring the government to refuse enhanced protection. Any subsequent incident would have triggered devastating political and administrative fallout. This maneuver ties directly into the so-called Shady Rari leak concerning the Ravek Committee's deliberations. In early 2026, reports surfaced that the committee was conducting its first comprehensive review of Harry's security status since the 2020 decision. Headlines suggested the Home Office was preparing to back down or reverse course. In reality, the process was simply functioning as designed. When a protected person presents new evidence of a potential threat, the committee is obligated to review it. This was not a victory for Harry. It was a tacit admission that his 5-year legal battle had been misguided. For years, he had insisted he was being denied any assessment, conveniently overlooking the fact that his own legal team had advised against requesting one, as it would have weakened his lawsuit. One cannot simultaneously sue to prove a system is broken while actively using that same system to achieve one's goals. Piers Morgan, one of the most outspoken critics of the saga, highlighted the glaring hypocrisy. While Harry's lawyers portrayed him as a man living in constant fear on British soil, The Duke himself showed a strikingly selective sense of danger. Most notably, while actively arguing in court that the UK was too dangerous for his family, Harry flew to an active war zone in Ukraine. There, he moved through areas under regular bombardment with minimal visible security, meeting veterans and posing for photographs. The irony of the 2026 review is profound. It demonstrated that there was never any institutional bias against him. Had the Home Office and Ravek truly been determined to undermine Harry, they could have dismissed his petition outright. Instead, they followed protocol, evaluated the new evidence involving the obsessed fan, and prepared to adjust his security arrangements for future visits. Ultimately, Harry's 5-year war was entirely self-inflicted. He spent millions, exhausted vast amounts of public goodwill, and created unnecessary conflict, all in pursuit of a status he could have secured through quiet, professional cooperation. However, cooperation does not generate the global headlines and sympathy that Harry and Meghan appear to crave. As this investigation continues, the focus now shifts to the palace's strategic counter-response. King Charles III and Prince William had observed this prolonged episode with mounting resolve. Their reply would not come in the form of a press statement, but through a permanent restructuring of the royal hierarchy. The party was over, while Prince Harry was tied up leaking stories about loan stalkers and dealing with the mess from his failed court appeals. Something way bigger was happening behind the scenes at Buckingham Palace. For years, the royal family stuck to their old-school playbook: keep quiet, never complain, never explain. But the non-stop lawsuits and public attacks from Harry and Meghan's side finally forced them to change tactics. They realized that staying silent was just being seen as weakness. By late 2025, King Charles III had had enough and decided to set up a permanent system to shield the monarchy from any more damage. The big turning point hit in October 2025, and it sent shockwaves straight to Montecito. In a bold move nobody saw coming, King Charles issued a formal decree on Prince Andrew. After all the scandals that wrecked the Duke of York's reputation, the king officially stripped him of his remaining royal perks, including taxpayer-funded security and his spot living at Royal Lodge. This wasn't just some cleanup. It created the Andrew precedent. From now on, the monarchy had a clear rule. If any family member, no matter their birthright, does stuff that seriously hurts the crown's reputation or integrity, their titles and protections can be taken away. It was a direct warning shot fired across the Atlantic to Harry and Meghan. By setting this precedent, King Charles gave himself the legal tools to finally handle the Sussex situation once and for all. The message was loud and clear. You're royal. Titles aren't a forever shield you can use to cash in on your grievances while suing the British government at the same time. The era of getting all the perks with zero duty was done. If Harry kept weaponizing his status against the institution, he could easily end up like his Uncle Andrew. The way the palace treated different family members only made Harry look more isolated. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, daughters of a prince and granddaughters of the Queen, don't get taxpayer-funded security because they're not working royals. They live private lives, have regular jobs, and pay for their own protection. Harry's demands that his birthright put him above those rules came off as pure ego, not a real safety concern. He loves complaining about how tough it is being born a prince, yet he's the only one treating that burden as an excuse to sue his own father's government. Meanwhile, things between the brothers hit rock bottom. Prince William has become the hardest line guy in all this. To him, Harry's security lawsuit was the ultimate deal-breaker. Dragging the royal family's private staff into court felt like a betrayal that can't be forgiven. King Charles gets painted as the dad stuck in the middle, torn between loving his son and protecting the throne. But William's stance is strictly about the institution. Palace sources say that even with his health struggles in 2025 and 2026, Charles has increasingly gotten on board with William's vision of a slimmed-down, modern monarchy. The financial help Charles gave them in that first year after Megxit? That's ancient history. The king's made it clear. His door might stay open as a father, but the bank account and official British protection are closed to anyone choosing to live as private celebrities in California. At this point, the question isn't whether Harry will win back his security. It's whether he'll even be allowed to keep his prince title. The Andrew precedent is now hanging over the Sussex brand like the sword of Damocles, and the king's patience has run out. Harry's legal battles didn't happen in a bubble. While he was busy in the High Court and filing petitions with the Home Secretary, the UK was dealing with serious social and economic pressures. That bigger picture turned his safety demands into the ultimate symbol of out-of-touch elitist entitlement. Looking at the data on how this has affected the monarchy's public image in 2026, the Sussex brand appears to have crossed the point of no return. One of the worst parts of Harry's campaign was the terrible timing. Right when he was demanding the British public pay for Harry's top-tier security, the UK was in the middle of a cost-of-living nightmare worse than anything people had seen. In 100 years, millions were barely scraping by with sky-high energy bills, crazy food prices, and a social care system falling apart at the seams. In that environment, watching a multimillionaire prince living in a $14 million mansion in Montecito, cutting big-money deals with Netflix and Spotify, charging $30 a pop for therapy live streams, and then turning around and suing for taxpayer-funded bodyguards really hit a nerve. People went from seeing Harry as this cool, modern guy trying to shake things up to viewing him as someone who treated his royal blood like a personal cash machine. The whole, "I deserve special treatment just because I was born into this family" argument started sounding toxic, especially when you looked at his cousins, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. Those two, also born princesses, stepped back from royal duties and lived normal lives. They got real private sector jobs and handled their own security without asking the public to foot the bill. Harry's refusal to do the same made him look totally out of touch and disrespectful to the people he used to say he wanted to serve. The damage to the monarchy's reputation has been brutal. Republican groups across the UK and the Commonwealth jumped on Harry's lawsuits as proof that the whole institution is outdated, entitled, and a massive drain on taxpayers. By dragging royal security into open court, he basically opened the floodgates. Now, everyone's questioning peppercorn rents, hidden royal finances, and the crown's assets. His "the system's rigged against me" narrative handed anti-monarchy folks the perfect ammo. Polls from 2025 and 2026 tell a rough story. After he lost his final appeal in May 2025, a big YouGov survey showed 62% of Brits now want the Sussex titles, completely stripped, way up from 45% just 2 years earlier. That's not some fringe opinion anymore, it's the majority view. Even in the US, once their biggest fan base, Harry's popularity has tanked so hard he's now less popular than Prince Andrew. The fairy tale story of the brave young couple fleeing a cruel institution has worn thin. Now people just see two folks who turned family drama into a tired money-making machine. On top of that, Harry's claims about his military service and the threats against Meghan have come under heavier scrutiny. Sure, he did time in Afghanistan, but plenty of other high-profile vets live private lives without round-the-clock government protection. The far-right threats were real, and people got prosecuted. But police insisted regular measures were enough. By demanding only the absolute top-level security, Harry made it clear it was more about status and convenience than actual safety. Heading into 2026, the Sussex brand isn't seen as a fresh, youthful face for the monarchy anymore. It's become a textbook example of how fast a global image can crash when ego and entitlement win out over duty. People have seen past the victim act, a guy who gripes non-stop about the weight of his title while milking it for every dollar, and who trashes the country he still expects to protect him. The real cost of Harry's 5-year security battle is that he's permanently lost the British public. He's become a prince without a country, a celebrity whose glow has been dimmed by the very spotlight he couldn't bring himself to step out of. In the end, Prince Harry's long security crusade wraps up as one of the biggest shifts in modern Windsor history. What started as an arrogant ultimatum at Sandringham in 2020 ended with a quiet surrender in 2026. There was no big cinematic win, just the cold truth that the system wasn't going to bend for a prince who walked away from his post. Third, age of the global victim narrative is over. It's been replaced by a correction. Status isn't a lifelong free pass you inherit. It's something you earn through service. The biggest takeaway in 2026? The system didn't fail Harry. Harry failed to understand the system. Harry tried to paint the Ravik Committee and the Home Office as some biased relics of a dusty old establishment. But the truth is the exact opposite. The fact that Ray did a fresh security review in early 2026, right after Harry's humble petition to the Home Secretary, shows the British government was always willing to listen to real evidence and adjust. Based on actual risk, by playing by the same administrative rules he once called illegal, Harry basically admitted his multi-million-dollar lawsuits were nothing but a flashy, self-serving waste of time. The system stayed cool and objective, while Harry stayed emotional. His super-selective fear is what ultimately killed his credibility with the public. The guys out there strolling through war zones in Ukraine and risky parts of Nigeria for photo ops and personal branding. But suddenly, a charity event at a London hotel is too dangerous. That double standard wrecked him. Piers Morgan nailed it on X, and that's why it hit so hard. Real fear doesn't come with carefully staged photo opportunities. Real fear means you keep a low profile and stay away from the cameras you claim to hate. Looking ahead, the fallout for the royal family is permanent. They've learned they can't let members cherry-pick their duties while still expecting all the state-funded perks. Prince Andrew's situation and the Prince of Wales's firm stance have basically put up a concrete wall. No easy way back to the UK for the Sussexes. King Charles III, even while battling his own serious illness and the pain of a disappointed dad, put the survival of the monarchy first. Letting the legal process play out without interference was a real act of constitutional duty. He showed that even the son of a king isn't above the law. The whole Sussex security saga will go down as a masterclass in missed opportunities and self-inflicted isolation. If Harry had taken the generous lifeline his father offered back in 2020 and worked through the proper channels, he might still have the respect of the British people. Instead, he went the route of endless lawsuits and public meltdowns. Now he's scraping the bottom of the popularity polls, even behind some of the family's most scandal-plagued members. He wanted to be a global icon of protection and importance. Instead, he became the poster child for a collapsed royal brand. The real judgment didn't come from some judge in a wig. It came from the public he left behind. As of 2026, the verdict is clear. The British monarchy is moving on. Leaner, more focused, and centered on the people who actually show up and do the work. Harry and Meghan are still sitting pretty in Montecito, rich in cash, but completely broke when it comes to public trust. They're no longer the revolutionaries they pretend to be. just regular private citizens finally being treated exactly how they demanded. The correction era is over. The monarchy survived the Sussex storm. The truth outlasted the headlines. And the story of the prince who sued for status, he didn't earn ends right here.